I'm always keen on bass instrument players, cellos, and bass instruments. For every ensemble, you need a bass instrument. And the other point is I show what I wrote down. I always mention, again, it should be noted that a certain ability to play new or unknown pieces of medium difficulty prima vista is an advantage. Since I noticed this, all the players could play quite well prima vista. That is fine for all of them, of us.
Okay, good. So actually, Susan, when we were putting our whole Mozart Jam Kazam play in together, I think Susan and I might have spent 7 hours on the phone. I can't remember. It was a couple sessions, but it was a very long and tricky procedure. But one thing that we ended up doing was not being purists about exact instrumentation. So I don't know if you want to speak about some of the decisions that we made in that regard.
Very good point.
That is true. We did do things where you had instruments that were at least played in the same key, that we let them trade off for each other. I think like having flute play the violin part, or that's a way to deal with all the flutes. It's to play the violin parts, things like that. Actually, and online, you know, one of the cool things about the internet is that people have created strange arrangements of all kinds of things. And how we found a crazy production of some larger Mozart piece for a very interesting ensemble. So yeah, I would say it's really good to be creative and look to some of these things that, you know, people have just put together and see if you can use them in the plan.
Excellent. So Jenny, I see you just raised your hand.
Yeah, I think that I always prepare my players for that they're going to have in my advertisement that they're going to have a better experience if they can sight read well. A couple people have come when they thought they could sight read and they had miserable experiences. So I don't exclude them per se. I say, if you want to try it out, try it out. They sometimes leave after the first session, which is a disaster. So I usually talk to them in person if they're new and I don't know their ACMP rating, which of course some people up their real rating and some people down. So it's hard to match groups. But some players are really against having a flute take a violin part. But if you're going to have mixed groups, you just absolutely have to. I have one bassoonist who loves being a cellist, and he takes a breath every once in a while, you know. So I think that allows a lot more collegiality between winds and strings. The great difficulty is, of course, if you have someone not show up, and then you have this flute hanging around with, you know, nothing to do. So I think mixing winds and strings is extremely difficult, and I've just decided not to do it this coming up session because it was just impossible with COVID illness. So I think that's how I manage trying to allow people to come in on their own cognizance and sometimes discover for themselves that it's not for them. And I do have a decent digital piano, so I can pianist who can face a digital piano rather than not playing at all. So I can sometimes expand that to 4 to allow another pianist in. And there is a huge repertoire of, like, if I have 8 cellists, there's a repertoire for 4 cellos. And you just have to get it from your local library, or, you know, download it, or ask the cellists themselves to bring it. So that I try to kind of match. Last time I started out with like 15 violists. Can you imagine, Stephanie, 15 violists and only 8 violinists? But, you know, there's a lot of chamber music for lots of violists. So anyways, I try to be flexible in that regard, but I have to know the repertoire. I have to have a good handle on how to search IMSLP for, you know, music for 3 violists and 6 violins. So it gets complex. If you want an easy one, balance your your program before the people come in. I think that's the way to make sure that you're not going to be tearing your hair out the week before.
Wow. So that's very, very good points, Ginny. So Phyllis, I see you have a comment.
Yeah, so I have had sometimes when the groups are oversubscribed, there are just too many people. And if the room can accommodate it, I will ask the group members if someone can double on a part. So we have allowed doubling in our play-ins, and that has been fine. We have also had mixed string and winds. There's a spore nonette that you can do and a few other things, but it is very difficult to arrange. And I find it particularly difficult to get bass players. And I have had the experience of having to turn away a trumpet player because I could not find any music that worked with. And so if anyone has any suggestions on that, I'd love to hear it. But there do seem to be some limitations. I don't know that I could accommodate trumpets and tubas and trombone brass section.